120 seconds. 110 seconds. 100 seconds. 90 seconds. 80 seconds. 70 seconds. 60 seconds. 50 seconds. 40 seconds. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. This morning, talk with me, your host, J. Stan McCauley, along with the champions of talk. This morning in studio, we have talk champion Cacique joining us live and in living color.
Good morning, Stan. Good
morning, sir. How are you?
Good. Good morning to all our listeners and our viewers, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope everybody's having a wonderful week.
How was your week, speaking of weeks?
Well, so far it's been good. You know, we're getting the business going. I'm waiting to make the announcement when I get the sign up. But I'm just going to say it. The Taino Chess Club is open for business in Berlin, 1020 Farmington Avenue, man. Y'all stop by.
All right. Dynamite. Any big plans for the week?
No, I retired, Stan, and my routine is is the same. I take my son to school and then my wife, and then I go home and do what I got to do and then head out to the shop, man. So that's the plan.
All right, the magic of retirement.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, someone told me that they're retired and they're really busy, and some days I feel like I'm way more busier now that I'm supposedly retired than when I was working. So yeah.
Well, I don't think the retire. Look at that. Let me drop that there. I'll get situated here. A little out of step. Retirement doesn't mean you're not busy. It just means you're not like at your old regular 9 to 5.
I agree.
The ball and chain. You cut the ball and chain off. So now you're free, Lou. I mean, cacique.
You know, it kind of
free.
It kind of though. It kind of they sell it to you like, they're putting you out to pasture. You know, you're not gonna have much to do.
You're gonna have lots to do.
You got lots to do.
Lots to do.
Yes, lots to do.
Yeah. I remember when I was working at Pratt & Whitney, they said the average number of retirement checks you collected was 10. 10.
After you retired, you only lived for a couple months?
At Pratt & Whitney, that was what I was told at 19 when I started working there, and I heard that all the way through, that the average retiree, remember, people working 35, 40 years, and it was not uncommon to see guys with wings. You had a little wing on the top of your badge. I think once you got above 25 years and it went to 30 years, 35, 40 years was the largest I'd ever seen. But you're so used to doing stuff that the retirement to throw you into doing nothing. I think the elixir of youth is work. Keeping your mind sharp, your body sharp, and you sit around and do nothing. You're not contributing. It's a big shock.
Well, I agree, and I think that the other thing that retirement has given me, though, is an opportunity to really understand me as a person, and to in my community we have 4 healths. We have the mental health, we have the emotional health, we have the physical health, and we have the spiritual health. And now that in retirement, I have been able to examine all of those and see where I'm at in each, because the idea is to try to get to the same spot with all 4 of those. You know what I'm saying? So you're really vibrating at a higher level. So it gives you an opportunity to take a look at yourselves in all those aspects and see where you're at, and then you kind of begin to work on some of those things, Dan.
All right, so then maybe retirement is opportunity to be self-reflective. Get a
big time.
Discover you've been spending the first part of your life working, slaving. Now you can focus on building that which matters most, yourself,
and also some of the interests that you may have, because a lot of people, I would venture to say most people, Stan, the work that they do is not the work that they would prefer to be doing, but they do that job so they can do what they prefer to do after.
Unfortunately, I think you are absolutely,
and I think retirement
right.
kind of gives you that segue where you can kind of do the things you enjoy doing. You don't have to worry so much about working for somebody else or doing stuff like that.
All right, well, we do have a guest joining us this morning.
Yes.
Dr. Bowen should be signing in shortly. She said around 8:35, 8:40 or so. She's in transit, she teaches, so she's on her way up to Boston. She's always somewhere when she joins us, so we'll see if she joins us at about 8:30 or so. And but until then, and after she gets here, we have a special guest joining us this morning. Now, as is always the case here, whenever we have a special guest, we let the inviter of the special guest have the honor of introducing the special guest.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. And the person that would be introducing the invitee would be me. Because Stan didn't say that. He didn't
you're the
use my
only
name.
one. You're the only.
We have to learn to use people's names.
Elementary, but
That's what I'm
sometimes you
saying.
gotta break it down.
That's what I'm saying, man. So anyway, today I have the honor and the pleasure of introducing a magnificent brother who's been in our community for a long time, former law enforcement, martial artist, and just a great community member, the kind of people we want in our community. I'd like to welcome Rick Torres. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, buenos dias. Thank you guys for having me.
Buenos dias, mi amigo.
Yeah.
Muy bien,
Did I say
Stan.
that right?
Yes, beautiful, Stan. Very nice.
Very well done, dude.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, so tell us a little bit about you, who you are, man.
Well, I came here from Puerto Rico circa 71. Hartford has been very good to me. I was lucky to enter the Army, and after completing the U.S. Army Military Police Academy, came back to civilian life, and eventually was able to gain employment working for State of Connecticut's Protective Services Division of the State Police. I was assigned to the Department of Mental Health. Went up the rank structure there. I was lucky to retire at the rank of lieutenant. Did a lot of training stuff. I'm still very involved in training of police officers. I have 3 beautiful grandchildren. And I'm here hopefully to have a nice chat with you guys. And by the way, thanks for everything you guys do. You guys have an awesome show. You keep people in Hartford very well informed. And it's kind of like how I start my Wednesday mornings.
Man, it's great to hear that, Rick. Thank you so much, man. I wanted to ask you, Rick, we're going to jump right into it, man, because we don't have a lot of time, you know what I'm saying? So I just want the audience to know that, I invited you on so you can tell us a little bit about the Civilian Review Board process, how that works, and how that has been implemented in Hartford. Has it been effective? And there's a lot of stuff, but the last question I'm going to ask you is a question that I asked the chief a couple days ago. We were at the police station at a protest. And do you think that the Hartford Civilian Review Board is an effective mechanism towards police reform? So let us know the other stuff first, and after you answer some, the other stuff, then you can. It's going to lead to that anyway, right? So you answer that question.
Okay, so part of what I did after I retired, I was a commissioner on the board for 6 years. 2 of those years was as vice chairman. The way the boards are supposed to work depends on what model the board uses. In Hartford, we were using what was known as an investigative model. There's also the review model, and there's also the audit model. Let me try to explain those 3. Investigative model is pretty much what we did because we had our own investigators, even though they were hired. So our investigators go out, investigate the complaints, submit a report, totally separate and independent from internal affairs. We, the board, take a look at both reports, both investigations, and then discuss, vote, or, sometimes we may ask people to go back out, investigate a little bit more. Usually that's done with some constraints that are usually around 45 days to conduct an investigation. But to be very honest, I don't know if everything has changed or if anything has changed within the board since I left, because it's been, I think, around 6 years. So in Hartford, like I said, we went with the investigative model. We have the review model, which is kind of like overseeing what internal affairs does. Never felt that was efficient. And then the audit model, which is to randomly identify patterns and trends, not individual incidents. However, one of the things to keep in mind in regards to the police board in Hartford is that, the purpose is to help maintain the public trust that Hartford police will, investigate allegations of abuse impartially. The key part of any board is being able to operate independently from the police department. We ran into a lot of trouble with that, as clearly evident for those people that read the Current. There was a lot of articles, and there was a big investigative article done by Matt Ormseth. I think that was, I'm not sure if I remember the date, but it was quite an extensive article, and it was some, September of 2018. So I hope I've answered your questions in regards to the process and the different types of boards. So I think you had a secondary question to that. Can you please ask that again?
Yeah, absolutely, and you did answer that very well. The other question is, do you feel as a as a former member of the board and as a member of this community, do you feel that the Hartford Civilian Police Review Board is an effective mechanism towards police reform?
as it stands right now, I really don't think it's being effective. And how do we measure that? My opinion is that the police reform law requires has an element within it of mandating people to, or rather officers, to, if they see something wrong, to act upon it, and duty to intervene is actually how they put it in the law. Once we start seeing that a lot of officers are doing that, or some officers are doing that, that's when you know that you have definitely impacted the culture. I mean, recently we had a couple of incidents. I forgot the gentleman's name, but there was something in the paper about a sergeant punching a woman in the face.
Well, she was in handcuffs, yeah.
Right. So there was quite a few other officers mentioned there. And, my question is, for those guys and gals that may have been there, how many of them blew the whistle? Maybe somebody did. I can't be unfair and speculate, because we are kind of speculating. But to be able to tell whether it's really working and it's impacting, when you start officers starting to do that, that's when you know that you're beginning to change the culture. Because, given the population that we have and the caseload that Hartford has, if, for example, the board is going to sustain 5 cases this month, how many of those involve other officers? How many officers are blowing the whistle on other officers? That to me, that's going to measure whether the law is impacting and is working what it's supposed to do. And that's quite a big task. So
you don't feel that it's an effective mechanism or tool, the way it's being used, or the way it's being implemented?
Based on that measurement, the whole idea is to change the culture. And what we have all learned through the Tyre Nichols incident is that we need to change that culture. You know what I mean? People may feel different ways about that, but any human being that watches that video is going to be appalled at what we all saw. And that continues to work negative feelings against and mistrust against police. And we really can't have that, because we need order too, So right now, the workings of the board, the only thing that I was able to do, knowing that I was going to be talking about this, is, I popped into City Hall and grabbed some stuff about the police review board's meetings. And, I'm seeing that they only meet 10 times a year, because they take 2 months off. And I see nothing but cancellations here. So that's just by stopping in the town clerk's office. I see about 4 or 5 cancellations. So this is just within the last 18 months. And I understand that one of the common excuses that we're hearing a lot, definitely COVID, is, you use it as you see fit. But we are meeting right now, and we're not exposing each other.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, because
in my opinion, there's no excuse considering what technology can do, even though I couldn't get the camera to work.
But you're here though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no.
Right. And to your point.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you brought up something I think is really important, and I think maybe folks kind of know. Maybe it's like up in the ether, so to speak. It's out in the atmosphere, if you will. But I don't think people have actually just grabbed a hold of it or come down to earth with one of the statements that you made in terms of changing the culture. It's like trying to turn an aircraft carrier at full speed on a dime. You just can't. It just it's just too much involved. I should say, well, you can't turn on a dime. It just takes a while. And I think that if there were intention to make the board work, then if people can't make it, you replace them with people who will make it. It seems to me that in a city of 100 and some odd thousand people, that you can't find anyone. I don't think there's an effort to find certain people that are going to be effective at the job. Because I remember back in around that time, did you mention about 2018 or so? The board was, as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, the board was dismissed.
Correct.
So I mean, you know,
we need to hear about that.
Is there an effort to actually
that's crazy
hold the police accountable? It's as though, this is just as an observer, no empirical data, but the constituent citizen in me says that rather than the emphasis being put on maintaining trust in the police by the citizens, that there's an effort to maintain to build a wall of obscurity by the police. It's as though they don't want you knowing what they're doing, and they're using this mechanism to maintain secrecy,
to maintain that culture.
To there you go, perfectly said. To maintain the current culture, because if the current culture is seen, then it will change.
Absolutely.
Correct. Absolutely. I agree.
I agree with that, Stan. That's a great statement. Now, Rick, here's another question that I think that people are interested in hearing. Is the way that the board is set up now, does it have any teeth at all? And what I mean by that is, once you look at those reports back in the day when you were on the board, or the board now, when the people look at the investigation, and then is there a disciplinary method that you apply? Do you have can you discipline an officer as a civilian review board? And if not, do you think that's effective at all?
When I was on the board, technically we could definitely try to disseminate a list or create a list, talk to the chief and leave it up to him to do that. I'm not sure how the workings of the board are now. I don't know if the municipal code has changed. I don't know if the bylaws of the board have changed. But while I was there, we were supposed to compile lists, identify trends, actually use the same methods that courtrooms use. You know, any suspect who has a criminal history, you know, that usually comes to play in court. So we could have and should have, and we did begin to compile lists of officers that we found to be frequent flyers, for lack of a better term. But to be very honest, in regards to what I think Stan had mentioned, was the fact that you got to have people on the board. And I think it was 2016, we had a police brutality case that was very, I don't want to call it popular, but it was out there in the press a lot.
It was prominent. Prominent.
Yeah, very prominent. It was the Emilio Diaz case. So what became our demise at the time, we have 5 members of a board that's supposed to be staffed with 9 voting and 2 alternates. They never got us any extra people. So we were down to 5 people, but, you know, we had a pretty diverse group of skills in all those individuals. So once the Sean Spell case was exposed out there and the film came out of him kicking the person that was handcuffed, which was Emilio Diaz, I kind of like got on top of things a little bit and waited for the actual arrest to happen. Once that happened, then the arrest warrant became a public record. So we were able to obtain that. And while reviewing that, we learned that there was over 30 officers at the scene from multiple jurisdictions. There was some pursuit. And the state police sergeant noted in his warrant that 19 Hartford police officers refused to even answer his call for an interview. I found that very appalling, to be very honest.
Disturbing is the word that I would use, brother.
So I brought it up in a meeting and, you know, put it up for a vote, and I said I want these guys identified, because we had already compiled lists We already knew who some of those frequent flyers were, and you start cross-checking. That's what we were supposed to do. Even though we did not have teeth to discipline, we were setting,
information.
Yes, absolutely.
Intelligence on these criminals. Yes.
So, immediately, the very it was a unanimous vote. We want those guys identified so we could cross-check them with the people that we had already identified. Lo and behold, there was quite a few of them there that were part of that list, part of that group of officers. But think about when there's a crime, the police usually put out a public outcry, please come forward. They weren't even willing to answer the state police officers' email or phone calls. And, these are all sworn officers. So we wanted to identify them, and we got into a little bit of a struggle with Chief. We definitely won the struggle, but the very next month we had 3 representatives from the mayor's office, and we were all pretty much dismissed for pretty much doing what we're supposed to do.
I remember that. So it would seem as though while these are sworn officers and they swear an oath, it is as though there's a dual or a twofold oath. One, to uphold the Constitution and all of the other things that go along, and then the primary one, to protect and serve one another. Would that be fair?
Yeah. That's what they're saying.
It seems because when the culture changes, and so the litmus test has to be evidence of cultural change, which means, as Rick has laid out, which means that police officers begin to hold one another accountable as opposed to covering up one another's mistakes or errors.
And Stan, you are 100% correct. But here's what I see. And Rick, you can chime in, but what I see in the police and in a lot of other bureaucratic organizations is that bad cops get promoted. Is that?
Especially in Hartford.
Is that a true statement, Rick?
Bad teachers too. Bad administrators.
That's what I'm saying. So here's another question.
Let me throw something at you really quickly.
One
quick point on that. Our current chief was disciplined and demoted as a lieutenant in 2010 for getting into a bar fight with other officers.
While he was drunk.
Officers responded to the location and he engaged them and started fighting with his brother officers. He eventually became chief.
Right.
So
here's that follow-up question, Rick. When you concluded your investigation and you made your recommendation to then police chief, who was the chief then?
Ravella.
Jim Ravella. That guy, he's making more money off our backs than anybody in the history of Connecticut. I think he's retired from like 10 police departments, and now he's the head of the state police. But anyway, so what did Chief Ravella do with that information that you gave him with your recommendations? How many of those did he, how many of those did he co-sign?
Pretty much none of them. In most cases, he never responded to us. He was very cooperative, for lack of a better term. And when we compiled the list in 2013, we told him, you got 19 officers who we've identified as having sustained cases. And, very reasonable for a department of nearly 400 officers. So at that time, he gave out a couple of oral reprimands, one written reprimand, and some counseling. So that was 2013. And that was a list of 19 officers. 2014, the list grew to 29. We never heard from him. And we kept trying to communicate to him to find out, what did you do? Because that's the methodology that's present within the code. In other words, we can't tell you what to do, but you got to tell us what you did to those officers that we have identified. Then we saw the list grow in 2015. he never got back to us.
So
Never got back.
Here's a follow-up question. Do you think individuals like Jim Ravella contribute to crime in our communities?
I think indirectly, so some people can see it that way. You know what I mean? The problem that we have, I believe, is that people sometimes put a lot of emphasis on accolades, acronyms at the end of your name. You know, having a master's degree, having a PhD, yes, definitely something that sometimes could be a requirement and can look at. I'm looking at people that can effect change. So when you look at somebody's resume, that's why he ended up getting the Commissioner of State Police job, because he was pretty much running Connecticut's biggest municipal police department, I believe. I don't know if New Haven might be bigger. So they look really good on paper, but effectiveness is not measured, or, you know, it's kind of clouded. So unfortunately, until that changes, and I don't see that changing at all, yeah, there's going to be too much emphasis on one aspect of the job. And, you know, having good personal skills is important. And having a degree is important too at certain levels. But I really don't believe that Chief Ravella was that effective in Hartford. And I'm going to throw something at them. I'm going to go through a little list here that I put together. I have to dig this up. But I want you to keep in mind that the people that I'm going to mention are all people. These are all officers that got into trouble, and we are all very much informed about this through the press, through newspapers. The majority of them were supervisors. So when you see that, that's when you see that there's a problem, okay? In 2010, you had Lieutenant Thody getting demoted. 2013, Sergeant Kessler made a racist remark over the radio. He was supervisor. 2014, we had Detective Ware. He had a taser incident that was, I think it was settled by the city. 2015, the only one that was an officer was Officer Stakowicz, who, again, making racial comments, racial slurs at the casino. I think he was fired. Then we had Sergeant Spell in 2016. Sergeant Barone, the trigger-happy guy, in 2017. Sergeant Tornero with the cocaine and stealing from the police department in 2018. Sergeant Rodney, sexual harassment. Chief Thody, falsifying training records. 2021, Sergeant Guzzi punches a woman in lockup. And I can just keep going. So, 2022, Chief Thody, DWI. 2022, Greg Thomas shooting somebody in Waterbury, not even notifying his supervisor. Yep. And then 2022, we have Lieutenant Ruiz assaulting a woman in a hotel room.
Yep.
All these people getting in trouble. These are supervisors.
Supervisors.
So imagine
or leadership. That's leadership.
Correct. So that's the only, and this is all true stuff that anybody can get by just reading the Current and watching the news.
Right. So this is
not only knows what else they have out there that's hidden.
Right. That and this is the stuff that's in the news. Nobody's talking about anybody. These are statements of fact that are in the news that all of y'all can look up. So if the supervisors are behaving this way, then how can one reasonably expect a cultural shift if the supervising individuals are part of the culture that creates this whole atmosphere?
I'm going to change that word of culture in this instance, Stan, and I'm going to say that, first of all, if you're a criminal, right, if you're a supervisor and you're committing crimes and you're not being held accountable, then when you come to me as another police officer and I do something, I'm under you. And I commit a crime, and you come to me, I'm gonna say, man, you got to shove that up, you got to shove that back. You know, you can't say nothing to me because look at what you're doing. How you gonna come to me and talk to me about that? And I think that's the culture that exists in the police department.
Well, I think we're gonna take a short break, but I think it not only exists in the police department, but as you pointed out at the beginning of the program, in many bureaucracies, and this is where the corruption happens. The system becomes corrupt and doesn't function as it's designed, because if you have supervisors that are acting like that, and then they try to put the squeeze on someone beneath them that's acting in a sorts, then now you get this whole thing. Look, man, look, I'll give you a raise and we'll promote you. And then people get promoted because of their criminal behavior within the system. And then you get people like Hanau, who, you know, in the school system is a pedophile, promoted way up to the very top.
Yeah.
And so that means, and I've said this publicly many times, he's just the smoke. He's the smoke. Because there's got to be fire somewhere else. People who do this are involved in the same kind of activity.
Right.
So if all your supervisors are corrupted, then they're going to look the other way. You're not going to have any kind of, any kind of accountability because the whole system becomes corrupted. We'll take a short break. We'll come back. See, I want to ask you, Rick, when we get back about, is there any way for the citizens to actually start to hold these people accountable? Like, are there any mechanisms that we can try to make work? Because right now, what we got ain't.
It's not working.
It ain't working, is it?
And it's not working for no one, you know. So yeah, we have to try something else.
Short break, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Every bad political decision is made by a politician elected to office. So if you think your vote doesn't matter, just remember this. There are people sitting with politicians in a back room making deals about your future, making policies about your children, making decisions about your neighborhood. To them, you are just a vote. You are not their charity. You are not their cause. You are just a vote. Elections have consequences, and if you don't vote, you are actually voting to keep these people in power to work against you. Now, more than ever, you need to make your vote count. Declare your independence from the plantation of party politics and free your political mind.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and
Well,
you're watching AccessTV.org.
I don't know what music today stand.
All right, welcome back. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, J. Stan McCauley, along with the champions of talk. Dr. Bowen's joining us now. We got Kisike in the house, Dr. Bowen, and our special guest, Rick Torres. Let's jump back into the conversation. Oh, yeah. So, the question on the way out was, what can we do as just regular folk who everyone supposedly works for to hold our employees accountable? Or do we need a new mayor and a new police chief?
That too.
That would be the best fix. What's the second best fix there, Mr. Torres?
I think that we got to find a way to find community involvement that is real. In my 6 years on the board, community involvement was abysmal. It was completely lacking, and you can see by who showed up to the meetings. There was a gentleman that was part of the Connecticut Socialist Party. Those are the people that came on a regular basis. They were very involved. But overall, no, it was very sad that nobody from the community would show up to at least get informed and see how the board works. And, because we technically represent the people. And, to take a look at our efforts to get familiar with the process. I'm not sure if that's happening now, in all fairness to the new board. So I really don't know if there's if it's new bylaws and actually new municipal code. But I doubt that the code has changed, because there was a lot of fight over the code anyway. They didn't want nothing to change, which is part of the problem. But just more to one of my last points, because I was just looking at the list here. I mentioned some names, and no disrespect to any of those officers, but I'm talking about stuff that's on the press.
Right.
That I'm reading in the paper. We talked about this Officer Thomas or Detective Thomas shooting somebody in Waterbury, then not notifying anybody. Guess who was on that list of 19 people that failed to cooperate with the state police?
Officer Torres.
Officer Thomas, you mean?
Flores, my bad.
Yes, and to go a little bit further, 5 out of those 19 were supervisors or command staff that failed to cooperate with the state police. So I still stand by one last thing that I'm going to mention is there's somebody actually getting a salary doing what we did, or actually what I did for 6 years. There was other members of the board that were on that board for 9 years, maybe even 10. So I'm definitely now become a little interested. I just don't have the time to research this. Somebody's drawing a salary to do the board work.
Wow.
Hey, hold on for a second, because so if that's the case, and I'm gonna throw a word out there, but what is it going to take to get an audit of any type of department, specifically this one, in regards to what's been going on, especially since, someone's getting paid, and if I'm correct, it's supposed to be voluntary?
No, I think they instituted or created this new position. I don't know if they call it a special master, special something, but somebody's drawing money. Yeah. Somebody's getting paid to do this.
I
don't know if you were listening. You may have been doing it while you were on the road.
I did.
There's still quite a few meeting cancellations that I just able to pick up recently from the clerk's office.
That is horrible. Like, okay, so for example, you made a good point about us using technology, right? So why is it that the alternative is not for them to switch into a technology convening for the board? Because the show needs to still continue, and we have options now.
Well, I'm not sure what the exact reason is for each one of those cancellations, in all fairness, but regardless, there's one of two reasons: staffing, or just people not really caring. And that's where the community involvement comes in. I think a lot of people are overwhelmed with all the other stuff, the economy, you know what I mean? And feelings of, I got to take 2 hours of my time to go there once a month. But I personally believe that if you consider yourself an activist and you want to really be involved, you can't fall for, just feel-good stuff. I was a little bit excited, and I remember we went to Kimura's house for a chat. Remember that, Louis? We were outside with some young people, and there were a lot of young people that had that energy and that time to get involved. And I think they might have been part of BLM 60.
Yes.
But that fizzled out. It wasn't even a brush fire, to be very honest. But at that time, I was excited to see young people wanting to get involved. People need to get involved, especially if they consider themselves activists. You know,
absolutely. Rick, I got a question for you. So, in regards to these young people who hopefully, you know, some of them were actually like in high school or middle school, what would stop the Board of Education from having them earn some type of community volunteerism / credit if they have a curriculum set up for that, or even just getting some kind of notice within the Hartford Public School System in terms of their volunteerism on these boards, right? So what would stop a young person from being a voluntary member of a board such as the CRB?
I'm really not familiar with I'm not familiar with what would stop them, but that is an awesome idea to get that community involvement, especially from, you know, the younger generation, so they can find out. I mean, back in my day, this would be kind of part of civics, in my opinion. And we used to have civics classes back in the day. They attached it to American history or whatever, but I think that's an outstanding idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got tons of youth, and they're bored, quite honestly. Having grown up in Hartford, there wasn't a lot that was presented to me as options. And so something like this would actually not only bring new blood into the organization, but it'll also give insight into what it is that the youth have actually seen, as well as educate them in how it is that meetings are convened. So it's a win-win in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just having dialogue with law enforcement entities can expose each side to the needs and the pressures that they both face. You know what I mean? Because being young and being a person of color could be quite dangerous, and putting on the uniform is also quite dangerous. And I can only say, because my time is kind of running out here, but I'm actively involved in martial arts training for police officers. Gracie survival tactics is one of the things that we teach at my dojo. And I'm in touch with officers, and I'm telling you that recently I've been hearing a lot of comments that at least indicate that there are officers that they're not playing now, because I think Tyree Nichols has woken a lot of them up too. In other words, they're saying that I'm not going to jeopardize my pension for a dirty officer. So I've heard those comments, and that's something to put out there, because there's still good officers out there.
That's the kind of feedback we want from them officers. And Dr. Maya, what a great idea. Thank you so much for that, man. I love when we involve our youth, because that's our future. So
it is. We have to pass the baton, and it's always going to be to the generation that's coming up underneath us. And so we have to model the way so that they can carry it forward and then become the models that model the way for the next generation.
You know, that's a great point. And something came to mind when you mentioned passing the baton, because I was in a meeting the other day where they're trying to set up this. I won't go into it because I don't want to, spill the beans before it's supposed to be spilled. But nonetheless, it was a big emphasis on getting young people involved. And when you talked about passing the baton, and I wonder sometimes if in our effort to pass the baton, we're not preparing. Because as Rick talked about with the dojo and training officers, you need to be prepared to be out and about when dealing with individuals who could use physical force.
Yes.
I think a lot of times we just take somebody and just hand a baton and tell them to run. They don't have any strength. They have no conditioning. They don't know what's ahead on the track.
They got no shoes
They have
on.
no shoes on. And so, I think these opportunities need to be there, but just a simple return of civics in school, which can be done without a whole lot of machination, and school government You know, remember when you actually ran for government? You have your class president. You have different homeroom leaders. I mean, they've disassembled any opportunity for people to have the strength conditioning necessary for the political process, so that when they come out, they're not ready. So we're setting them up for failure. You know, and so I think that we really need to put, we as constituents have to do our job. As Rick is saying, you look out there, there's nobody there. There's no one at the Board of Education. There's nobody at the Citron versus Vaughn meetings. There's nobody at the Civilian Review Board meetings. There's nobody at the City Council meetings. You know, all of this requires involved people, citizens, to go there and be involved.
Really quickly, I would say that by design, when it is that you eliminate something as important as civics, you have these invisible individuals at these meetings. So there's no people on purpose by design, because it is that we are not developing individuals to grab hold to even understanding the process. So if I don't have a civics class, I don't get engaged. Without engagement, I don't make myself present at these meetings, because I haven't been exposed to the idea, notion, interactions that go on within the city. We keep it in city limits. And with that being said, if you don't expose, you won't get engagement. Without exposure, there's no engagement. And it's by design.
Well, we can, you know, if you see the bucket has holes in it, you get a bucket that doesn't, or fix the holes. So we can see the end result. If it's by design, and we can identify that it's by design, then it's incumbent upon us to stop that activity. So we start demanding civics be taught. That's not a hard lift.
No, it's not.
You know,
civics wasn't the only thing that was taken.
All kinds of stuff
Don't
was
forget,
taken.
we used to have, home economics. We used to have the shop where you could learn a little machine, a little carpentry. They took a lot of the basic essentials away from us. But I just want to ask. Rick is leaving, so I just want to ask you a question before you leave, Rick. Give us a Hartford memory. Something that you recollect, something that brings a smile, or an event that you recollect from Hartford. Brief, it doesn't have to be a long thing. Just a memory.
Well, my memories usually, go back to the 70s, growing up on Benton Street, going behind Buckley playing basketball.
Nice. Beautiful.
Saying, man. I got next.
That's beautiful, brother.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's a real Hartford memory, man.
Yeah, no, celebrating celebrating things like when Moochie Starling first won the Golden Gloves.
Oh, yes.
He used to be in my woodshop class.
Oh, boy.
I lived on 57 Weathersfield Avenue, and above me was Pepe Vasquez and his brother Sammy, who were incredible. Sammy was an All-American wrestler.
And Pepe, both of them.
Yeah, yes. They were incredible athletes and great people. Pepe eventually became an officer with state also, and unfortunately we lost Pepe. But, I got to bring it to the 70s. It was a lot of fun. The music was better, too. But in closing, because I do have to run, there's still a large number of officers out there putting their life on the line, and they really do care. In fact, I'm going to go train with a couple of officers right now. So training is also very important, and I wish we could spend a little bit more time, but I got to go do my thing. I want you guys to be safe, and I want to thank you for having me.
It's good to have you.
Maybe we can revisit this as we do a little more digging, and we can get some people to show up at these meetings.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick.
Absolutely, brother, man.
Thank you so
much, man.
All right. Thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to join us. Very, very insightful.
Very
and
informative.
Very, very informative. And the key is change in culture. All right. Since we're not making a product like a new car or a table or a vacuum cleaner where you will see the change. It'll be evident when the product is sitting in front of you. The product we have is one of service to people. When it comes to the city services, they're all they're all designed to serve us as constituents. So we can see there's a huge problem within policing. And the first place that has to happen is obviously, this is just Stan's opinion, not necessarily the truth, is obviously within the ranks of the police department. So it seems as though there's enough cultural pressure that the police officers are now at least having the conversation among themselves that I'm not going down for bad cop.
I like that.
Or dirty cop.
That's very encouraging.
That's what's happening with this pressure. And I'll bet you dollars to donuts that if you are hearing people talking about all of this police accountability legislation being bad, there's supervisors or leadership within the police ranks that want to maintain the culture. Listen to the words they talk about. Listen to what they say and how they phrase it. They're trying to protect the status quo, which means they're trying to protect the culture. There's no shortage of people who want to be police officers. There's a shortage of people who want to be involved in a corrupt organization. And there are people who want to get out because accountability is coming.
Yes.
There's a reckoning coming. And despite police officers being promoted up, not only through the ranks, but through the system, where they start to run whole entire systems, and they came up that way. It becomes almost like a secret society. It's not quite skull and bones, but just beneath it.
Well, the police departments in a lot of cities are considered the biggest gang in that town.
Well, they're illegal
because of
they've been authorized.
So many officers have been, like that unit that they found in the Tyree Nichols, right?
The Scorpion unit.
The Scorpion unit had already been broken. They brought it back under another name. They had similar things in L.A. County with officers wearing gang tattoos and being gang members and, going after like only certain gangs. They wouldn't bother the other ones. So the culture's out there, it's out there.
Well, not only is the culture out there, but you have corruption. Now, if you have corrupt police officers, just like you have corrupt clergy people and corrupt doctors, there's corrupt individuals in every system. But you have to have a way to bring these people under control. So if the corrupt officer isn't held accountable by their supervisor, and supervisors aren't held accountable by the chief isn't held accountable by the mayor or the city council, then ultimately the community has to hold them accountable because they all work for the community. And if you don't see the community turning up at places where these lines of accountability are established, it ultimately winds up being a reflection of the community. And we can complain all we want, but until we step up to the plate, nothing changes.
I got a solution.
Because we're the ones that have to step up to the plate.
So as I was saying about the civics curriculum, think about this. You can't get a natural tan without being exposed to the sun. And if it is that by design, civics has been stripped or removed from the curriculum, think about the number of students that pass through Harvard Public School System every single year. Some of them even become Harvard Public cops or officers. And so if they've never been exposed to civics education, there's a gap in understanding the value in playing a role within the community from the political perspective, so that you actually understand the value of voting locally as well as at the federal level, right? So that gap in and of itself speaks volumes, because you could tell by how it is that we don't see the numbers when voting is occurring. You could tell by all of the meetings that are devoid of individuals that should be representing the community. And I speak mainly from the perspective that if it is that we involved our youth more in the process, then they could decide how it is that they see themselves as being a part of the community, to have a voice, and then ultimately become potential leadership or activists within the community because they have value. They've been exposed, which leads to valuing the process, which means that with value, you then have an interest to get involved.
Oh, Dr. Maya, what a great point. That's a great point again, man. I really appreciate the way that you get our youth involved in a lot of your ideas, a lot of your recommendations. I've worked with youth most of my life, and it's very rewarding. It's extremely rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So thank you.
Absolutely.
Those are all
So
blessings.
think about this, Kasike.
Yes.
When it is that you take young people under your wings, they may not have been exposed to what it is that you introduced to them, right?
Yes.
But then when they get exposed to it, you find those that are very, very much passionate about it even years later, which means that they will then teach somebody else exactly what they learned from you. But if it is that you never exposed them to it, or nobody ever exposed them to it, then how then would they begin to even know that that was an option or avenue or pathway to go down? And this is where education allows for our youth to get exposed to different types of things that encompass our environment. Education doesn't just happen within the four walls of a classroom. It happens within our community. What we see in the community teaches us either to be aware, no, don't get involved in that, or it's something that is going to become add fuel to our fire to say, you know what, I want to become the change I seek, and then they participate in becoming that change.
All right.
Beautifully stated, Dr. Maya.
Take a short break, and then we'll be right back. Morning Talk. Don't go anywhere, my friends. Don't go anywhere. All right, Jay Hogard in the background. I'm supposed to be going to a break. I'm listening, I'm watching, we talking about the Jay. Stick and stay. We'll be right back, folks.
Hi. So my name is Nelky Maldonado.
My name is Ramon El Arroyo.
And we know that Hartford Parent University provides good services and resources to parents in our communities, which are greatly needed because a lot of times our parents, they don't know where to go, how to get information, and being part of this program is essential to them in being successful in their children's education.
And I think that parents should get involved in their kids' education because it's very important. Education is, I always believe, is a success in life. If you got a good education, you can be very successful.
So we encourage our parents to please come join the program, ask lots of questions, and I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed.
Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, welcome back. Morning Talk with the champions of talk. Dr. Maya Bowen in the house and Cacique in the house. Also in the house, we got a caller joining us. So welcome back to everybody. Caller, are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear us? Brother Chris, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
You're live. Go ahead, brother.
Good morning. Good morning. Good
morning.
Listen, thank you for having me real quick. I want to stay on topic with you all. We're talking about with the Civilian Police Review Board. I just wanted to share with your listeners and the other fam there that we are a month away from what could be one of the biggest civil trials that we could have in 2023, stemming back to the swatting incident that my children and I survived, and we talked about on your show several times. On March 15th, 2023,
Chris, I just want to say who you are, Chris.
Who worked in conjunction
Chris Dukes,
with
by the way,
Harper
family.
police officers to frame me, will be taking a stand in a civil lawsuit for malicious prosecution. I'm so looking forward to it because finally someone gets to examine publicly what this woman has done, and I believe she's going to reveal a lot that these major crime detectives and patrol officers put together for us. And I wanted to share that with your audience. Again, we need big victories in the Black community, and I think this is going to be one of them for sure.
Well, it has to be kept in the press. Chris, can you hear me?
I can't. It's challenging, but that's okay.
That's interesting. I don't know why that is the case. Well, nonetheless, we're on the phone.
I can't hear you, Stan.
You cannot hear me. Can you hear me now? No. Okay, hold on. We'll do this the old school way. This is how we used to do it back in the day. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
There we go. No, we got Christopher Duke joining us on the phone. We can hear him, but he couldn't hear us. So I have to figure out what's going on with that. Having said that, this has to stay forefront in the news, because if it doesn't get any press, then the broader community doesn't hear about it. So we got to make sure that this is covered by the Current and by the Connecticut,
No, we want national attention on this, Stan.
Well, that's how it gets there. But if it's not in the news, then people won't hear about it. Now, I was in attendance at the city council meeting last night, and Brother Peter Little had on your T-shirt, and he mentioned it before the council.
Beautiful.
Yes, I did watch it online. Yes.
Yeah. So opportunities that present itself need to come forward so people can hear about what's going on, and this is how you start to hold departments like the public safety and police departments accountable. If this stuff is kept in the ether or crushed in terms of information, then it doesn't get out, and it's got to get out broadly.
So
yes,
Chris,
and we have been working on that. If you remember, Stan, again, part of the system and part of the chokehold that's put on society involves the media. As you perfectly have said before, the power of the media is about what they do not say.
Yes.
And if you remember, all the local media that you had just mentioned, all of them have egg on their face because they all were instrumental in assassinating my character and keep putting forth that taboo narrative about dangerous black men, the assumption that we are all thugs or potential thugs. And when it came time for them to tell the truth of why my charges were really dropped, they doubled down on the false narrative before, rather than tell the people because of the DNA evidence, because of the phone records, because of toxicology, and all the other evidence that we've gone through on your show before. So our media base has egg on their face, and you know who controls our media. So they're afraid. They're going to wait for these judicial decisions to come down before they try to, I guess, get on the good side of me moving forward. But they are part of this broken system, and accountability is coming for them as well.
All right.
So I have a quick follow-up question for you, Chris. Now, there are not just police officers involved in your case. There are prosecutors and other government officials that are going to be held accountable in your case.
Correct. There's prosecutors, the president of CCSU, the president of the entire CSU system, who has been covering this up as well, Attorney General William Tong and his office. Everybody's implicated in this, hence the t-shirt that you've seen Brother Peter wear last night. It really is an exposure of so many people who had a chance to fix this, but they were so committed to, again, this chokehold, the white supremacy chokehold that is put on us, that, again, they look stupid. They thought they had a great story. It was a juicy accusation. The problem is that accusation was never supported by any kind of evidence whatsoever that wasn't fabricated.
So then the once again we come to culture change being made evident by change in behavior. And so what did you know, when did you know, and what did you do about it? So
Exactly.
If the Attorney General's office knew, if the president of CCSU knew, if all these people knew and did nothing, then they're as complicit as the police officers that stand around having a donut while someone's life is choked out of them.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that all this is coming to head now, Chris, because you have a lot of support in the community, and we're all looking forward to your victory in court.
Thank you, everybody. You all have a blessed day.
All right. Keep us up to date.
Will do.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
It's, oh man, I tell you something. Championing a cause because you're right. It reminds me of Daniel being placed into the lion's den, right? It's a interesting dynamic, especially when it is that you are being kept by the one that created you. Right? So Chris, definitely prayers going up. Victory is yours. Walk in victories, brother, because it's not easy, hasn't been easy, and that's there are no words for that. Now, here is something that I want to discuss. Now, we had the our little commercial break, but I started thinking about the parent engagement that was raised. So in Hartford, we've got a lot of different dynamics going on in terms of who's working, who's not, and how many jobs are they working, and if they're not working, why aren't they attending the meetings that are held in regards to their children's education? From my perspective, there are so many different variables that would have an individual not attend. But I tell you this, if it is that it was in a parent's heart to actually attend at least one, right? They would make it happen. So we pretty much do what it is that we want to do based on how much we value it. It's all value based. And so, without giving anybody any real excuse, I'm observing just human nature that whenever it is that we want to get something done, or if we want to go somewhere or get somewhere, we make it happen. So again, when we started the year, I was like, no excuses. 2023 is the year of no excuses. And so I put that on myself as well. And with that being said, you know, in order for us to see change, we have to first think about how we see going about the change. And that starts with our mindset. And then we put things into motion.
Yeah, yeah. And ultimately, as they say, I guess what says the man in the mirror, be the change you want to see. Yeah. Because now I'm get too esoteric here. If people want change in the way they're treated, then they have to demand to be treated better. And when it comes to, you know, the system we have in terms of how, you know, how government runs in Hartford, you know, we got the whole country, but we live in Hartford. Hartford government is easy to change if the people who actually the government belongs to demand better. That's true. Know, McDonald's didn't always, you know, have healthy food, but the people demanded healthier food. So they started changing because of the folks. You know, I'm not a big fan of, as everybody publicly knows, I still stay steadfast. I respect those who do, but I don't. I was never a big fan of the cannabis stuff. However, the community and the constituents wanted change, so it's there now. Change happens because people are intentional about changing things. And if you want stuff to change, it doesn't matter how many people don't. The ones that do have to speak up and make the change happen, and then it does. Absolutely. But you're not gonna get change if the people who are trying to hold on to the status quo look in the room and they don't see anyone. There's nothing in their mind saying, I gotta change. People are upset. No, they're not upset. They're talking about how upset they are, but they're not even. They're not coming. Don't you don't have to even worry about it. Or you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Or they look in the room and they see the same three people. The same three people. So then they know what to do. They can appease those three people and then go on and do whatever it is that they do. Yeah, you start getting crowds of people come out, people start changing almost immediately. Immediately. All right.
I'm wondering where all our groups are in terms of the fraternities and sororities.
They're having step shows. They're having step shows.
Where are they?
There's a lot to be questioned
they're all
about
education, though. They're all about education and civics. And so where is it that they have placed in their schedule in terms of a rotation of who shows up at the meetings?
I'm going to make a public challenge to the Divine Nine and all the rest of them. I am at every single Board of Education meeting. I have never, since the days of the Board of Ed meetings on High Street, when Nora Wyatt fainted and they was throwing water, and it would get 100 degrees in that floor, in the wooden floor boardroom, to EAI, to every single, I've seen almost every single Board of Education meeting in the last 30 some odd years. And I've never seen a member of a fraternity or sorority at a Board of Education meeting clamoring about education.
Why would you, either you or Dr. Maya or anybody listening or watching, expect organizations that have nothing to do with indigenous or African culture be worrying about what's happening with us? They have nothing.
No, because I'm gonna state this, and I know at least 2 members of the board are part of a sorority or fraternity, and that's inclusive of the Divine Nine. And so if it is that with those two individuals representing the community,
Mm.
they are showing an interest by volunteering their time.
They don't count.
Yeah, nice try, Dr. Maya. That's not even a nice try. I'm just gonna tell you.
They don't
fly
count.
anywhere.
They don't count.
That don't even fly in fiction.
I'm just saying.
Yep. That's all you're saying.
But see, they are representatives. So their vote counts.
Their vote counts,
Hey.
but they're not representing. They're
Somebody-
not there
Somebody
representing the
take the
divide.
shovel
No.
away from Dr. Maya. She's digging a deeper
Listen,
hole.
there is no shovel even present because every observation is absolutely relevant on Morning Talk, and this is
That's true.
We just added some caliente.
Yes, yes. No, and I agree with that statement though.
We adding the heat.
Every observation is relevant.
Yeah, like literally, what I'm really thinking about is what they espouse as groups, right?
I want to add something to that statement,
Hold on
Dr.
for a
Maya.
second. There's a
sorry.
civics element regarding them getting involved in community, and there is an educational element that they also espouse to. So all I'm asking is, where are they identifying members of their respective groups to do a rotational and show up so that it is that the community sees them, but they also show that they have a sincere interest. Now, their absence could also mean that they don't have an interest at all. So it speaks, we flipped a coin. It's either going to land on heads or tails. So, let's see what's going on. Either you have an interest in what's going on with our youth, or you don't.
I would say by virtue of their absence, they are expressing exactly their level of interest to be involved in the policy making process of what goes on with the Board of Education. They are absent. Now, you could stack up on opening day. You can do everything else y'all want. This, that, and the third. Step up into a Board of Education meeting, because your presence will make a difference. These folks are all college graduates. They've got advanced degrees. They have this, that, and the third. They've got economy. They have all these things, but they're not present where they really can make a difference. I don't mean, and I respect people doing the rotation, but elected officials know who's on rotation. They know that you're only here to show face because you're not here next week or next month. They know that. And so the people who drop in and never come back are not effective. I need to see a passionate concern. Right.
Yes.
Right. Am I asking too much?
Absolutely not.
All these other things they be doing,
No,
do some of that down at the Board of Ed.
Absolutely not, Stan. You're not even asking for enough. What are you talking about, man?
Let's stomp the yard. Show improve. Stomp the yard.
There you go.
At Hartford Public Schools.
Right. I want to see 12 months in a row. Stomp the B.
Challenge.
Stomp the B. Oh, what the BOE?
Challenge.
The Board of Ed. Stomp the BOE. And I want them out there stomping.
So
march on down the aisle.
I just want to put this out there to the family, to all the family out there, real quick, right? I'm never gonna come on this show or anywhere and defend black and brown foolishness. I just want to put that out there. I don't care how black or brown you think you are. If you are there collaborating and doing some dumb stuff and you're not involved in the community, then that's exactly what you're doing. You're doing some other stuff. So you get no passes here. And with that, I also want to say, I want to recognize, you mentioned the Reverend Nora Wyatt. He was a real good friend of mine. We did some activism, and I nicknamed him the Texas Rattlesnake.
The Texas Rattlesnake.
Because Reverend Wyatt had a fiery temper, and he was a very passionate man. Very passionate.
Yep.
Brother, rest in your power, and thank you for all the work that you did out here. We are completely grateful. And I just want to mention, once again, Brother Lou Brown, thank you for your guidance and your leadership, Elder. You are esteemed in our community. And also Eugenio Caro, that's my mentor. I want to say hello. And to all the young people out there that are doing what you're supposed to do, I salute you. We don't promote any foolishness here. We want, like I said before on this show, I want to hold white people accountable for all of the crimes that they have committed and continue to commit against us. But we must hold ourselves accountable even more, because the decisions that we make impact the way that we live our lives. Thank you so much, family.
Absolutely. Dr. Bowen.
Yes, I just want to say that throughout all that is going on, you are survivors. And if it is that you have faith, already know that you're victorious.
Beautiful.
All right. All right, we'll let Jay Hogarth take us out. My friends, you all have a fabulous rest of your day. And check out Jay's new album. It is smoking. It is absolutely smoking. We'll see you next time, y'all. Ciao, ciao.